They laughed when my family forced me to marry the broke janitor. My sister called me pathetic. My mother cried at the shame. But when that same man walked into the boardroom as the hidden owner of the largest pharmaceutical empire in the country, their faces went pale. This is my story. Before we dive in, if you love stories about karma and hidden identities, smash that like button and subscribe. You won't believe how this unfolds. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Diana, and 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I was 28, working as a marketing director at a decent company, living in a nice apartment, and for the most part, I had my life together. But then everything collapsed in a single week. My father's construction company went bankrupt. 30 years of hard work, gone. Bad investments, delayed payments from clients, and a lawsuit that drained every penny we had. My mother, Patricia, sobbed for days. My younger sister, Rochelle, just kept asking how this would affect her social life. And me? I was trying to figure out how to help when I could barely keep myself afloat. Then came the meeting. My father sat us down in our family living room, his hands shaking as he held a letter. He told us there was one way out, one benefactor willing to clear all the debts, save the company, and restore everything we'd lost. The catch? I had to marry someone of their choosing. My mother gasped. Rochelle laughed like it was some kind of joke. But my father's eyes told me it wasn't. This was real. This was happening. I asked who it was. My father handed me a photo of a man named Tobias. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at the local hospital. He wasn't ugly or cruel looking, just ordinary, simple. In the photo, he wore work clothes and had this quiet, unassuming expression. My mother took one look and burst into tears. Rochelle snatched the photo from my hands and actually cackled. She said, "You're going to marry the janitor? Oh my God, Diana, you're really going to throw your life away for Dad's mess?" I wanted to slap her, but honestly, I was too numb to react. The wedding happened 2 weeks later. It was small, embarrassing, held in a courthouse, with barely anyone there. My mother wore sunglasses indoors to hide her tears of shame. Rochelle didn't even show up, sending me a text that said, "I can't watch you ruin yourself. Enjoy your poverty." The relatives who did come whispered the entire time, looking at Tobias like he was some kind of charity case I'd been saddled with. And Tobias? He stood there quietly, said his vows with this gentle voice, and slipped a simple gold band on my finger. No diamond, no flair, just gold. I felt like I was attending my own funeral. We moved into his apartment that same week. It was modest but clean. 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, nothing fancy. I remember standing in the middle of the living room with my suitcases, feeling like I'd been exiled from my own life. Tobias carried my bags to the guest room and told me I could have my own space for as long as I needed. He didn't demand anything from me, no expectations of some fairy tale marriage. He just said, "I know this isn't what you wanted. Take your time." Then he went to make dinner. That first month was strange. I was drowning in bitterness and grief, yet Tobias was just there, steady and kind. He cooked every night, asked how my day was, never pressed me for affection or intimacy. He left for work every morning at 6 in his maintenance uniform and came home around 7. On weekends, he read a lot: business books, investment journals, pharmaceutical research papers. I thought it was odd for a maintenance worker, but he'd just shrug and say he liked learning. There were small things that didn't quite add up, like his watch, this beautiful, expensive-looking piece he wore sometimes. When I asked about it, he laughed and said it was a convincing fake he got online. Or the way he'd take phone calls in the other room, speaking in this authoritative tone I never heard him use with me. Then I lost my job. Budget cuts, they said. Last hired, first fired. I came home that day and just broke down. All my pride, all my resistance to this marriage, it all shattered. I was stuck in a life I didn't choose, with no career, no independence, and no way out. Tobias found me crying on the couch. He sat down beside me, not too close, and just listened. When I finally stopped sobbing, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Diana, you're one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. They didn't deserve you anyway, and they're going to regret letting you go." I looked at him like he was crazy. How would he know if I was brilliant? We barely talked, but there was something in his eyes, this absolute certainty, that made me want to believe him. Then he suggested something wild. He told me I should start my own consulting firm, use my marketing expertise to help businesses that actually valued innovation. I laughed bitterly and asked him how I'd fund that with no savings and no investors. He paused, then said he had some money set aside from years of working and careful saving. He offered to invest in me. I was stunned. Here was this man, who supposedly lived paycheck to paycheck, offering to bet on me when my own family had written me off. I asked him why. He just smiled and said, "Because I believe in you, and because everyone deserves a chance to build something they're proud of." I didn't know whether to hug him or question his sanity, but I was desperate, so I said yes. The next 3 months were a blur. I built my consulting business from the ground up, working 16-hour days, pitching to anyone who'd listen. And somehow, clients started appearing. Good clients. Big names I thought I'd never land. When I asked how they found me, they'd mention industry connections or referrals from people I didn't remember meeting. It felt lucky, impossibly lucky. My business took off faster than I ever imagined. And through it all, Tobias was there, encouraging me, celebrating every small win, never once taking credit. But things weren't adding up. Tobias still left every morning in his work uniform, but sometimes I'd catch him returning in expensive suits before quickly changing. One evening, I decided to follow him. I know it sounds crazy, but I needed to know who I'd actually married. I watched him leave in his usual clothes. Then I grabbed my keys and tailed his bus route. Except he didn't stay on the bus. He got off downtown and walked 3 blocks to this massive glass building, Westmore Pharmaceutical Headquarters, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the entire country. My heart pounded as I watched him walk straight past security, past the lobby, and into a private elevator marked for executives only. I stood there on the sidewalk, frozen, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. I pulled out my phone and searched for Tobias Westmore. And there he was, CEO and majority owner of Westmore Pharmaceutical, net worth in the billions, reclusive genius who revolutionized affordable medicine distribution. The man I'd been living with for 4 months, the man I'd married thinking he was just a maintenance supervisor. I drove home in a daze. When Tobias walked through the door that evening, back in his work clothes, I was waiting. I didn't even let him put his bag down. I just asked him flat out, "Who are you really?" His face went still. Then slowly, he nodded, like he'd been expecting this moment. He sat down and told me everything. His full name was Tobias Westmore. He'd built his pharmaceutical empire from nothing, starting with a small generic drug company and growing it into a giant. But with success came parasites, gold diggers, opportunists, people who wanted him for his money and power. He'd been burned so many times that he started living a double life. At his company, he was the CEO, but outside he dressed down, lived modestly, and kept his identity hidden. He volunteered at the hospital doing maintenance work because it kept him grounded and anonymous. Then he saw me. I'd been organizing charity events at that same hospital for my old company. He noticed how I treated everyone the same, from the cleaning staff to the donors, how I fought for fair budgets and ethical partnerships. He said he fell in love with my fire, my integrity, my kindness. When my father's company went under, Tobias saw an opportunity. He became the anonymous benefactor, but he set one condition. He wanted to meet me, to marry me, but without the money and status in the way. He wanted to know if I could love him for who he was, not what he had. I was furious. I shouted at him. I told him he let my family humiliate me, let them treat me like a charity case. let me struggle and doubt myself, all while he was a billionaire playing dress up. He let me scream until I ran out of words. Then quietly he said, "You were never trapped, Diana. You could have left any time. I would have still cleared your father's debts, still supported you. I never wanted to cage you. I just wanted to know if you'd choose me without the noise." That broke something in me. Because he was right. He'd never demanded anything, never controlled me. He'd given me space, respect, opportunity. He'd believed in me when no one else did. The money was always there, but he'd given me something more valuable. He'd given me my dignity back. And somewhere in those 4 months of quiet dinners and gentle encouragement, I'd fallen for him too. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Tobias. The man who made terrible jokes while cooking, who listened to my dreams, who saw me. I asked him what happened next. He said that was up to me. We could go public with who he really was, or we could keep living quietly. It was my choice. For the first time in months, I felt powerful. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. 2 weeks later, we attended the annual Pharmaceutical Industry Gala. It was the biggest event of the year. Black tie, attended by every major player in the business. Tobias had been invited every year, but never attended. This time, he RSVP'd for two. I wore a emerald green gown that cost more than my old monthly salary. Tobias wore a tailored tuxedo that fit him like armor. When we walked into that ballroom, I felt every eye turn toward us. And there, near the champagne table, was Rochelle, my baby sister, wearing a knockoff designer dress, clinging to the arm of some mid-level executive she'd been bragging about on social media. Her face when she saw me, it was priceless. Her mouth actually fell open. She stumbled toward me, her date forgotten, stammering, "Diana, what are you doing here?" I smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, my husband was invited. You remember Tobias, don't you?" She glanced at him, still not understanding. Then someone nearby whispered, "That's Tobias Westmore." And I watched the color drain from her face. Her date, overheard, realized who he was standing near and literally backed away from Rochelle like she had a disease. He mumbled something about needing to network and disappeared into the crowd. Rochelle just stood there, speechless for maybe the first time in her life. Then my mother appeared, Patricia, in her best jewelry, desperately networking her way through the room. When she saw me, she rushed over with fake enthusiasm. "Diana, sweetheart, I didn't know you'd be here. You look wonderful. We should have lunch soon, catch up properly." She didn't even glance at Tobias, still not recognizing him without his work clothes. Tobias stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm surprised you want to have lunch with the daughter you cried over marrying a penniless janitor. Or was that just for show?" My mother's face went white. She looked between us, realization finally hitting her. She started to speak, to apologize, but Tobias simply took my hand and guided me away. We didn't need to say anything else. The room had seen everything. My old boss was there too. He tried to approach me, tried to schmooze and hint about collaboration opportunities, now that he knew who I'd married. Tobias and I walked right past him without a word. I didn't need his validation anymore. The best part came later, when the host announced a major donation from Westmore Pharmaceutical to fund healthcare access initiatives. Tobias was called to the stage, and he brought me with him. He told the room that his wife, Diana Westmore, would be heading the new community outreach division. That her consulting firm, which had already made waves in ethical marketing, would be partnering with Westmore Holdings. The applause was deafening. I looked out at that sea of faces and saw respect, admiration, and yes, envy. But this time I'd earned it. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Rochelle's social circle dropped her overnight. Turns out, insulting a billionaire's wife has consequences. She ended up reaching out to me, humbled and desperate. I didn't gloat. I actually offered her a junior position at my firm, not out of cruelty, but because I wanted her to learn what real work looked like. She's still there, actually doing well, finally understanding that status means nothing without substance. My mother took longer to come around. She sent apology flowers, left voicemails, tried everything to get back in my good graces. Eventually, I met with her. I told her I'd forgive her, but I wouldn't forget. Our relationship would be rebuilt on honesty, not status or shame. She cried real tears that time, not tears of embarrassment, but genuine remorse. We're working on it now, slowly. My father, who'd stayed quiet through most of the drama, pulled me aside one evening. He thanked Tobias privately, man to man, for saving our family and for treating me with more respect than he'd demanded himself. That moment meant more than any gala or public vindication. As for Tobias and me, we renewed our vows 6 months after that gala. This time, it was our choice, a beautiful ceremony with people who actually loved us, not our money or status. I stood across from him and realized that being forced to marry him was the worst thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me that love isn't about circumstances or wealth. It's about finding someone who sees your worth when the whole world tries to convince you you're worthless. Today, my consulting firm is thriving independently. I didn't need Tobias's name to succeed. I just needed someone to believe in me long enough for me to believe in myself. Together, we've launched initiatives providing affordable health care to underserved communities. The same hospital where Tobias used to work in secret is now our flagship project, a state-of-the-art facility serving thousands. People ask me all the time if I'm angry that he lied to me. And honestly, I'm not. Because he didn't lie about the things that mattered. He was exactly who he said he was: kind, respectful, supportive, and real. The money was just noise. What mattered was that when everyone else saw me as a burden or a failure, he saw a partner, an equal, a queen. They forced me to marry a man they thought was penniless, but I chose to love a man who taught me my own worth. The revenge wasn't in flaunting wealth or humiliating my family back. The revenge was becoming so fulfilled, so genuinely happy, that their opinions couldn't touch me anymore. That's the real power. That's the real victory. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button right now. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and trust me, you're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because the next story is even more jaw-dropping. Remember, never judge someone's worth by their bank account or their job title. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is actually the one holding all the cards. And sometimes the best love stories start in the most unexpected places. See you in the next one. And remember, karma always comes full circle.